July 2025, the Caribbean Sea. The Colombian Navy intercepted a vessel moving silently through open water. Gray, low, nearly invisible against the surface. Officers boarded it. No crew, no captain, no pilot. Just a single antenna mounted on the hull. A Starlink satellite antenna, built by Elon Musk's SpaceX. Someone was controlling this submarine from thousands of miles away, through a commercial satellite network, without a single human being on board. This was not a military prototype. This was not a government experiment. A drug cartel built this, deep inside the Colombian jungle, without a blueprint, without a shipyard, without a navy. And this was not the first one. For 3 decades, an invisible fleet has been moving through the world's oceans, past radar systems, past sonar arrays, past the most advanced coast guard on Earth. Of every 100 vessels that enter the water, only 5 to 15 are ever caught. The rest vanish, completely, permanently. The scale of what has been built beneath the surface is so precise, so calculated, so effective, that the United States Marine Corps studied it, reverse-engineered it, and began building their own version. A brigadier general confirmed it publicly. He said they simply stole the idea. This is not a drug story. This is an engineering story. And it starts not in the ocean, but deep inside a jungle that doesn't appear on any map. The Caribbean, 1980s. The water is dark. The night is quiet. And then, engines. Powerful, screaming engines cutting through the waves at full speed. These were the go-fast boats, long, narrow, and brutally fast, loaded with cocaine, built to outrun anything the authorities could put in the water. For a time, they worked perfectly. The Caribbean became a highway. Tons of cocaine moved north every week. Law enforcement could barely keep up. But the game began to change. Radar technology advanced. Aircraft got faster. Surveillance systems got sharper. What used to disappear into the night now showed up on screens miles away. The go-fast boats, once untouchable, became easy targets. Interceptions increased. Routes collapsed. The method that had worked for years was suddenly broken. The cartels faced a problem with no obvious solution. Radar could see anything moving on the surface of the water. Speed no longer mattered if you could be spotted from the air before you even reached open ocean. The entire trafficking model, built on surface speed, was now a liability. And then someone asked a different question entirely. If radar can see everything above the waterline, what happens below it? The first sign appeared in 1988 off Boca Raton, Florida. A small unmanned vessel, 6.4 meters long, found floating near shore, designed to be towed underwater and controlled remotely. Empty, but the hatch could only be opened from the outside. Investigators understood immediately. This was a proof of concept. 5 years later, in 1993, Colombian authorities intercepted the first true semi-submersible near the San Andres Islands, 7 meters long, built from fiberglass and wood. Most of its hull sat below the waterline. Only a small cockpit and exhaust tube remained visible above the surface. 2 tons of cargo. Almost no radar trace. US drug enforcement agencies didn't know what to call it. Eventually, they gave it a name. Bigfoot, a creature everyone had heard of but nobody had actually seen. The name was meant to be dismissive. It wouldn't stay that way for long. The concept was proven. But building a vessel that could sit beneath the surface was only the beginning. The real engineering challenge had not even started yet. How do you build something that completely disappears? There are no roads here, no ports, no cranes, no dry docks, just river water, dense canopy, and the constant hum of a generator running deep inside the Colombian Pacific jungle. This is where the submarines are built. The air smells of resin and diesel. The light is dim, filtered through tarpaulins stretched between trees. Workers move in near silence, laying fiberglass over wooden frames, sealing seams, testing fittings. Nobody leaves. Nobody makes calls. For weeks at a time, the men who build these vessels exist in complete isolation, cut off from the outside world until the job is finished. This is not improvisation. This is a production system. Materials hauled in through river routes, fiberglass sheets, diesel engines, fuel tanks, navigation equipment, each shipment broken into small loads. Local welders and electricians recruited carefully. corrupted gradually. Once inside, leaving is not an option. The knowledge was the real asset. Master builders moved between sites carrying design expertise. Certain construction signatures repeated across seized vessels. The angle of a weld, the curve of a hull, the placement of a fuel line, fingerprints of a clandestine trade. But even local engineers had a ceiling. In the year 2000, Colombian police raided a warehouse outside Facatativá in the Andean highlands. Inside, a steel submarine, 46 meters long, under active construction, designed to dive 100 meters deep, carry 200 tons of cocaine, travel 2,500 kilometers without surfacing. Russian technicians were on site. The cartels had gone to the former Soviet naval industry for expertise. Federal cases in Miami revealed more. One centered on Mauner Mahecha, described by prosecutors as the architect of an underwater cocaine pipeline. One of his submarines contained 249 Chinese-manufactured lead-acid batteries, electric-powered, near-zero acoustic signature. U.S. naval intelligence examined the design and reached a direct conclusion. The craft was potentially impossible to detect acoustically or by radar. A jungle-built machine had out-engineered a naval detection system. The economics made the risk rational. Build cost, $1.5 to $3 million. Cocaine value per voyage, $120 to $200 million. Not gambling. A logistics operation with margins most industries could not match. The factory stayed hidden. The vessel was built. The cargo was loaded. But now came the part no jungle workshop could solve. Crossing thousands of miles of open ocean, past radar arrays, past surveillance aircraft. Without leaving a single trace, the vessel is built. The cargo is loaded. The crew is inside. Now the real problem begins. Between the jungle riverbank and the coastlines of North America or Europe lies thousands of miles of open ocean. Patrolled, monitored, watched. To survive that crossing, speed means nothing. The submarine has to be invisible. And invisibility here is not a single feature. It is an engineered system, built layer by layer, against 4 separate threats. The first threat is radar. Standard maritime radar sends out radio waves and measures what bounces back. Metal hulls reflect those waves strongly. A steel ship lights up a radar screen like a signal flare. But narco-submarines are built from fiberglass and wood, materials that absorb radar energy rather than reflecting it. The signal goes in and does not come back. On a radar screen, the vessel registers as nothing more than background noise. The hull geometry adds another layer. Sides deliberately angled, sloped inward and downward, deflect any radar beam away from the receiver. The hull sits so low that only a few inches remain visible above the surface, indistinguishable from the movement of waves. Dark blue and gray paint, matched to the color of open ocean, finishes the job. To radar, this vessel does not exist. The second threat is sonar. In 2007, the U.S. Coast Guard recalibrated its acoustic sensors to listen for narco-submarines. The cartel response: water-cooled exhaust mufflers, routing engine sound through water channels before release, dissipating the acoustic signature entirely. The hydrodynamic hull minimized wake. A clean, narrow vessel moving slowly leaves almost nothing for sonar to follow. The third threat is infrared. Surveillance aircraft carry thermal imaging systems capable of detecting engine heat from altitude. Narco-submarines counter this with thermal shielding around engine compartments and lead siding in the hull construction, a material that suppresses infrared radiation. From above, the vessel appears cold, inert, invisible. 3 threats, 3 engineered solutions. But the designers understood that interception was always possible, so they built a 4th system, not for invisibility, for erasure. Every narco-submarine carries a scuttling plug fitted into the hull below the waterline. If authorities intercept the vessel, the crew pulls the plug. Water floods in immediately. Within 30 seconds, the submarine begins to sink. Within minutes, it is gone, taking the cargo, the evidence, and every forensic trace to the ocean floor. No vessel, no cargo, no case. The plug was not an afterthought. It was a legal strategy built into the engineering. 4 systems: radar invisibility, acoustic silence, thermal masking, evidence erasure. The stealth system worked. But every time authorities developed a new detection method, The response was never a modification. It was an entirely new submarine. Every technology has a generation zero, a moment when the idea is crude and barely functional, but proves that it works. For narco-submarines, that moment came in 1993. 7 meters of fiberglass and wood, 2 tons of cargo, no advanced navigation, primitive, slow, but it worked, and that was enough. By 2006, the second generation had arrived. The Pittle model, seized near Buenaventura, Colombia, was 18 meters long with twin engines, hull sitting almost completely below the waterline. Range, 2,000 nautical miles. Cargo, 4 tons per crossing. Radar profile, nearly zero. Where the first generation proved the concept, the second proved the scale. But this was not enough. Patrol routes expanded. Interceptions increased. The cartels responded not with a modification, but with a question nobody expected. What if the submarine could cross an ocean? The answer came in 2019. The crew called it Che, 65 feet long, built in the jungles of Guyana or Suriname. 3 tons of cocaine worth $121 million. Destination, Galicia, Spain, 4,800 miles across the Atlantic. 3 men made that crossing. 2 Ecuadorian sailors and a Spanish captain. 3 Atlantic storms, thin air, suffocating space. When they reached Galicia, their contact was not there. They drifted 2 more weeks, making desperate calls. When they finally tried to scuttle the vessel near shore, Guardia Civil officers with night vision equipment were already watching. They were captured, but the mission had already changed everything. A narco-submarine had crossed the Atlantic. The network was no longer regional. It was global, but this was not enough. In November 2020, investigators raided a boatyard on the banks of the Cucurupí River in Colombia. Under a tarpaulin roof, a fully submersible vessel with no combustion engine, twin electric motors, 10 tons of batteries, 12 hours submerged, 32 nautical miles of silent underwater range, 6 tons of cocaine worth $120 million. Build cost, $1.5 million. No sound, no heat, no radar return, no trace. But this was not enough. Because in July 2025, Colombian forces intercepted a vessel with no crew at all. No sailors, no captain, just a Starlink antenna connected to a remote operator beyond the horizon. 800 miles of range, controlled entirely through a commercial satellite network. It was a test run. It was empty. The operational version has not been found yet. 5 generations, each one quieter, longer, and harder to detect. But the most shocking chapter of this story has nothing to do with the cartels. It has to do with the people who were supposed to be hunting them. The United States did not ignore the problem. Navy destroyers were repositioned into trafficking corridors. Coast Guard cutters ran extended patrols. P-8 Poseidon aircraft, built to hunt enemy submarines in wartime, were diverted to search for narco vessels. Sonar systems, satellite surveillance, and interagency networks, all deployed against an enemy with no flag and no fixed location. The machinery of the most powerful military on Earth was pointed at vessels built under tarpaulins in river jungles. And the vessels kept getting through. Somewhere in that gap, between the technology deployed and the results achieved, a different kind of analysis began. Not about how to catch narco-submarines, but about what made them work. The Marine Corps Warfighting Laboratory began a quiet program. Engineers studied the design principles of low-profile semi-submersible vessels, hull geometry, waterline profile, minimal radar cross-section, hydrodynamic efficiency at low speed over long distances. The result was the autonomous low-profile vessel, a 55-foot robotic semi-submersible, tested off the coast of California, designed to resupply marine outposts across remote Pacific island chains, the kind of mission critical in any future conflict with China. Brigadier General Simon Doran did not use careful language when describing the program. "Truth be told," he said, "this is just a narco boat. We stole the idea from friends down south." The most advanced military on Earth had looked at a vessel built without blueprints, in a jungle, by engineers with no formal naval training, and decided it was worth copying. That is not a footnote. That is the conclusion of 30 years of asymmetric engineering. The hunters had become the students, and while America was formalizing what it had learned, The cartels had already moved past crude vessels, past diesel engines, past human crews entirely, to a level nobody had fully prepared for. On September 1st, 2025, the United States military conducted its first lethal strike against a suspected drug trafficking vessel in the Caribbean. Not an arrest, not an interception, a direct military strike, a kinetic operation against a boat on a known narco-trafficking route. It would not be the last. What followed became known as Operation Southern Spear, a sustained US military campaign across the Caribbean Sea and the Eastern Pacific. Navy assets, Coast Guard cutters, surveillance aircraft and special operations forces unified under a single task force with one directive: find the vessels and destroy them. In October 2025, President Donald Trump personally released video footage of a strike on a drug-carrying submarine in the Caribbean. 2 people were killed. Trump posted the footage publicly, calling it his great honor to destroy the vessel. By May 2026, Operation Southern Spear had conducted more than 60 strikes. At least 194 people had been killed. 5 strikes in May 2026 alone. No announced end date. By any measure, this is a war. But here is what the strike count does not show. From 1993 to 2023, the Colombian Navy intercepted 228 narco-submarines, the combined result of 3 decades of operations involving Colombian forces, the US Coast Guard, the DEA, and multiple international agencies. Submarine warfare analyst H.I. Sutton has estimated law enforcement intercepts 5 to 15% of narco-submarines that enter the water. For every vessel caught, between 6 and 19 others were not. The 228 seizures are not a record of success. They are a fraction of the total. The rest completed their crossings, delivered their cargo, and were scuttled, sinking to the ocean floor with no registration, no marks, no evidence. The July 2025 drone submarine carried no crew, no human cost for the cartel to absorb. At a build cost of $1.5 million against a payload worth many times that, losing a vessel is not a setback. It is a budgeted expense. While one vessel is intercepted, another is already under construction along a river that appears on no map. The infrastructure rebuilds faster than it can be dismantled. The war is real. The strikes are real. The casualties are real. But the system beneath the surface keeps moving. Go back to July 2025. The Colombian Navy is standing inside an intercepted vessel in the Caribbean. No crew, no cargo. A Starlink antenna on the hull. A test run, a systems check before committing to a full operational mission. It was empty. The engineers already knew what they needed to know. The satellite connection held, the hull performed. The vessel moved undetected through open water until physically spotted. By the standards of the people who built it, the test was a success. The next one will not be empty. There is no final chapter to this story. No moment where the system was defeated or made obsolete. 30 years of engineering iteration does not stop because the opposition escalates. It accelerates. Every new detection method becomes a design problem. Every interception is analyzed. Every generation carries the lessons of the one before. The ocean is vast. The system is invisible. And it is already on its next iteration. If this kind of engineering history is what keeps you watching, subscribe and turn on notifications. Every video on this channel goes deeper into the hidden systems and invisible processes that shape the world most people never see. Which generation of narco-submarines surprised you the most? The electric silent sub the US Navy admitted they couldn't detect? The vessel that crossed the Atlantic through 3 storms? Or the drone that needed no crew at all? Drop it in the comments. The next video examines another system operating just beneath the surface, one that moves something far more valuable than cocaine, across distances that make these ocean crossings look short.